Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and a happy new year coming up. Our final live podcast of 2020. And so if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get it, a happy 2021 coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. A huge thanks to everyone who has bought my new book. If you're still interested, it's still out there. You can find it on Amazon. You can get it at my website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. The book is Small Ball, Big Results, all about the little things that add up to the big things in baseball, business, and life. The support and the response has been overwhelming. I'm so humbled by it and so excited to continue talking about those topics and to hear news stories, which is what I get a chance to do on this podcast every single day. My guest is one that had me on his podcast a while back, early on in this pandemic. And so we get a little bit of, in sports terms, a home and home now as I get a chance to visit with him. Lou Diamond is an energetic and inspirational speaker, business development strategist, and performance mentor. For over 25 years, he has been a top sales performer, keynote speaker, performance mentor, consultant, best-selling author. He's got podcasts. He's done TV stuff. He's the CEO of Thrive, helping businesses, leaders, and brands thrive through the power of connecting. When he isn't speaking or working on his top-rated Thrive Loud podcast, one that I was on, probably sunk the ratings for a couple of days. He's a father, and he loves his sports team. So he and I have a lot in common, and really sort of tying all of these worlds together. It's something that Lou has been doing for a long time with his podcast, and I am so excited right now to be able to visit with the host of Thrive Loud, among the many other things that he does, Lou Diamond. Lou, how are you?
Joel, I'm doing spectacular. Excited to be on the other side of the microphone, literally and figuratively here. And great to be here, man. At the end of the year, wrapping things up. Thank God.
Thank God. You know, I've wondered about this for those that are watching live or even those that are listening in 2021. I've sort of wrestled with this a little bit because, I think we all know that just assuming that the calendar turns doesn't mean suddenly that we lose weight by going to the gym, that everything from the past year is wiped away. There's still a pandemic going on. With that said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer because I think that mentally there's something to sort of wiping the slate clean and getting a fresh start and having optimism. How do you view this past year and the upcoming year?
It's such a great point because there's so many good things that actually did come out of this unique year. For two people like ourselves, I mean, this may sound weird. Obviously, you and I do a tremendous amount of traveling. I do a lot for speaking and consulting. And obviously, in your line of work, you're traveling way more than most people. And that wasn't the case this year, which gave me a chance to be with my family a little bit more. My commute got, instead of hopping in a car and dealing with traffic, I got to deal with, dodging my dog as I walked down to my studio here. So really some good things about learning how to work virtually. I've been helping a lot of companies sell virtually, which has been great from that aspect. People learned how to be a little more efficient with all the hurdles. We also learned some other things, like learning and doing school at home was certainly not the thing that people love to do. I think that's one thing that everyone was appreciative of. I look at it this way. Every hurdle that we get to face in our lives is an opportunity for us to grow and connect with others. And even like we will always look back at this year and be like, hey, like just what a painful year it was. But there's so many incredible things that did happen from this that we will learn and grow from it. So I think that whole rear view mirror thing is just all of us just being like, hey, I want to be able to connect with people. The biggest thing we are missing is the ability to be with one another. And don't kid yourself. Like, yeah, you could do this stuff virtually all day long. But the reality is I want to go have dinner and shake hands with someone. I want to be able to give a bro hug to someone I haven't seen in a while. We need that. And I miss that.
I've been thinking a lot about that. And we're all wired differently, right? I mean, if you're more introverted, you're probably a little bit more comfortable with the setting. If you're extremely extroverted,
Yeah.
you probably are just craving that meeting and that bro hug that you just talked about. Although, look, plenty of introverts are missing being out too, and we all sort of respond in different ways. But it has been fascinating to me to see the way that we have all relied on those survival mechanisms.
Yeah.
And I want to be very clear here too, and I know you feel the same way, Lou, that there are a lot of people that have suffered or lost loved ones, and it's very easy for me to sit here in the new home studio / the spare bedroom and talk about how I've been able to pivot and the opportunity. And I do believe there's opportunity for everyone, but this has been hitting people hard all year and loss of jobs and all of that. What's been your biggest takeaway of 2020?
I think for me is, how about this? Appreciation for so many things. I don't think any of us have ever really been that appreciative of our health and our well-being. I talked about it this year, and maybe this is the case, Joel, being socially distant for most of this year. When was the last time, I don't know, you had a cold or you actually felt under the weather? If fortunately you were able to stay away from the virus. I have never in my life been more conscious of my health and well-being, and that appreciativeness of being in the moment when I need to be, and being ready and on my game for whatever I can be. I don't think I've ever been more aware of it than any other time. And I think appreciation of a lot of things. Can I just bring this back to sports for this year? If I have to watch, I can't wait for fans to get back into a stadium, because watching these empty stadiums, I was appreciating how much I loved sports and missed the competition. It's been really hard to get used to, pumped in fan noise or whatever it is. But I think we all recognize in every instance a certain component of something and appreciate how much we value these things. Yeah. And that would be the thing that I took away from this year, just an awareness of it. And for so many things that we would just normally not take a look at. So and that in business, life, in every aspect of what we're dealing with, I've had a bigger appreciation of that this year.
It's great perspective. And I want to talk about your business, but one of the reasons why I really like picking your brain on these type of topics, similar to me, or me similar to you, you've been at this longer than me, is that you have access to so many people across the country, not just through your business, but through your podcast. And you really start to get a feel for what different companies and leaders are going through. And I don't know about for you, but for me, I feel like I get this opportunity to learn from each of them and then hopefully pass that on to others. And you've done that for a long time. You're a connector by trade. I think it's probably who you are and probably always who you were. And we learn how to do that more effectively over time. But tell me about your business, the podcast, and how this has sort of all evolved and come together.
To summarize it real simply, Joel, I was put on this planet to work with the most amazing businesses, leaders, and brands and help them thrive through connecting. And the way that I do that is I'll work as a growth consultant to help sales teams better connect to their prospects and their targets, marketing teams better connect their message to their audience, and leaders better connect to the people in their organization. And that muscle and that skill of connecting, as you said, is something I've been doing my whole life. When I wrote my book, Master the Art of Connecting, I didn't realize that what I did was unique and that not everybody else did it. That was kind of a weird place to be. And it actually took someone else for me to say, you need to tell people that there are certain muscles and ways you need to actually be and work on so that you can better connect with people. Now, you mentioned the podcast and talk about appreciation. We're entering our 5th year of doing the Thrive Loud podcast, and we have close to 15,000 listeners per episode. That's because we have great guests like Joel. For the record, you had like a spike. I probably hit close to like 20,000 listens on your episode.
All right. Well,
I
I'll take
never
credit.
knew so many people in Missouri and in Kansas were actually interested in Thrive Lab.
I never knew that someone in New York knew the difference between Kansas and Missouri.
Well, our president didn't even know it either. Remember when the Chiefs won?
No.
Anyway, so but as it relates to the podcast, what I have loved and appreciated, and the theme of appreciation is in sitting in this seat, what an unbelievable gift it is to learn from so many different people in so many different walks of life. So I'm a little spoiled when I have a chance to connect with incredible people who are thriving in their lives, their businesses, and their passions. I'm on that end, and I know our listeners are too. It's just incredible, the content, the skills, the unique ways people look at something. And we're trying to decode what makes these people thrive on Thrive Loud. And it has only made my consulting practice, my speaking business, and even the podcast even more powerful and effective and valuable to those that listen to it. So if there was something I appreciated about this past year in 2020 was how much more attention the podcast received. And we spawned a new show that actually spun off of this, which maybe Joel might be on soon. A program called, yes, it's called Why They Listen. And it is featuring those very unique programs that have a unique message and a specific audience that's catered to why interesting people have put great content together and why your listeners listen. So it's been an absolutely gift and a pleasure to be here to have this. But the biggest thing, I love it so much, is that I'm selfish in the sense that I get to suck in all that information from these amazing people. And it's such a great conversation too. So I hope to continue to do it. We just hit our 555th episode this week. And there's at least 580 in the queue. I know that, but when they all get launched out, I just keep looking at it and going, why do we keep doing this? And then I remember each of those conversations as how much fun it is.
Yeah, and they're all good conversations as far as I'm concerned. If you have a good network, you're being introduced to good people, great people. Look, some will be better than others, some will be worse, but I haven't had a dud, I mean, it's like, and I guess if you do, you do. Like, I mean, I've had bad broadcasts on the television side, and some things don't go great and other things do, but there's something to be said, Lou, and I've always felt this way. I feel more strongly about it now than ever, that we all have a story to tell. Yeah. Some may be more interesting, some may be less interesting, some may be harder to uncover because people might be private or they don't think this is a big deal, and suddenly you say, wait a minute, that's really interesting. But what a privilege to be able to sit in this chair, so to speak, and to be able to selfishly learn, but then to be able to pass it on, to pay it forward. And I don't know when you sign up to do this, if there's such a thing, there's no sign up, but when you make this decision to do a podcast, whether it's because you want to make money or you want to work on a brand or you want to, whatever it is, I don't know that anybody says initially, hey, I want to bring all these people together and share with others. Or maybe you do, but you don't understand the impact of it until it starts to happen. I don't know about for you. I'm assuming this is true too, but for me, that's the most fulfilling part of this is to be able to have access to so many people and then share it with others.
Without a doubt, that is the underlying driving fact of why that podcast and podcasting has been successful. And what's actually really interesting is that we actually have decoded how to make it part of our business, as it's not just a funnel for a lot of the work we do in the consulting work and Thrive. It has helped open doors and partnerships, alliances, and in ways that I never even got to imagine. I'm even now speaking about how you can connect through podcasting more effectively. So there is even, we created a course out of the interview-based selling model and actually showing how podcasting and can practice a lot of skills that great salespeople can use on how to ask certain questions in certain ways to really get into the shoes of your target and your client and know how to effectively pitch that way. So translating a lot of the communication skills that you've been doing your entire career and now just angling that into a way that's really very effective in how you need to help grow your business, even the way you should be thinking about marketing, selling, and leading your organization. So all the things we value at Thrive have been now transposed into sort of a course within podcasting, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's been another gift from this year.
No, and I think that this whole podcasting thing, which is obviously not new, but it's gone to a different level in 2020, in part because people are at home, and it's a great way to connect and and to be able to market and whatever it is that your goal is. But I feel like everyone has a chance to be a broadcaster now. And as a longtime broadcaster myself, it's not, oh, what are they doing? I think it's awesome. I think, one, you make up the rules. People will say to me all the time, well, how do I start it? What do I do? How long should it be? What do I do for music? There's no rule. Like, I could sit there and say to you, here's some steps to take. Here's how to get yourself on iTunes. Here's how to do this. Here's how to market yourself. By the way, don't forget to get some cover art, and it's got to be the right pixels and all those little things. But then ultimately, it's like, do a 5-minute podcast, do a 30-minute podcast, do a 2-hour podcast. If you're lucky, you'll get paid like Joe Rogan. Probably not going to happen. But
probably not going to happen. Yeah,
probably not going to happen. But if you have a listenership of 1 or 5, or it's just your friends or your family, there could be value in it. I think that's one of the cool things, is that anyone can get involved in this, and that's great. Like, I don't view anybody as competition, so to speak. I'm just trying to throw good things out there. But you've seen this now grow since you got into this 500 plus episodes. How has it evolved?
I'd say there definitely was an advantage to when we got started. Like anything else, if you caught a right wave at a certain time, the amount of listeners we have has to do with the fact that we got in when podcasting was kind of in its infancy. I will say a little bit of a challenge to your point, that anyone can get into it. What I will say is, if you have a message and a purpose, that's one thing. Coming from being a broadcaster or being in front of a camera is a huge leap forward. I won't lie to you. I go back and I'll listen to some of those earlier earlier programs. And I've always had a very good voice as a speaker and a communicator. People always said I had a face for radio. What are you going to do? But exactly. But you have much better hair. Anyway, what I will tell you is that those that have those professional broadcasting skills are, fast forwarded on a much quicker track, knowing how to pace your messaging. I was just even listening to how you were doing your read for your sponsor. Shout out to the Enterprise Bank and Trust folks, that just to know all of that stuff that is rote for you, because that's just what you do. A lot of that for newer people, that familiarity is different. So having that as a background makes you Olympically better, positioning to a microphone, all the other stuff you're talking about. The marketing piece of it is secondary. So having that baseline skill is key. I do believe that having started it when we did, the biggest advantage that we had was getting a lot of listeners and growth at that early point. But make no mistake, there's so many shows out there that it's only put more pressure on us to continue to market. We started off with 1 show a week, then 2, then now 3. We have 3 shows a week with highlighted shows, live shows like this one. We have something similar where we do every other Wednesday, and people have asked us to do more of that, which means more promotion and every social media link from Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook to promote and tell people about it. Because the biggest lesson we learned about podcasting was a little secret for those viewers and listeners right now. It doesn't matter if they listen to the podcast. They just need to know that the podcast happened. And that became like a whole different world for us. You'll get your listeners that way, but it's way more important to let people know that Joel Goldberg is going to be on Thrive Loud, or Lou Diamond is going to be on Joel's show. That's such a crazy thing that people who've learned in media have known that for a long time. It just became the thing. My favorite component of this story is the first time I ever realized that it didn't matter as much if they listened. It just mattered that they knew about it. Was I had a really famous person on the program, and I was excited that that person was on, and I was talking to people, and they were coming up to me and they go, "Hey, I saw you had Joel Goldberg on your show." And I'd be like, "Oh, great. What did you think about it?" And they go, "Well, I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm going to get to it." And I remembered I was totally disappointed, Joel, when this happened. I'm like, "This is awful." I go, "No one's listening." And then I stopped. I go, "Wait a minute, but they know about it." And that became like a huge thing. And we just said, let's keep telling people about it. And eventually those listeners would grow. And it got us to work on our content and make the things the way they are. What I love the most about podcasting, without a doubt, it is the greatest networking tool ever created for exactly the reasons we talked about, in that you could have the interview, but the ability to use it even more so than a best-selling book, because not everybody's going to read something. Yeah. But to your point, a 5-minute, 8-minute, 20-minute conversation you could tap into and listen to while doing something else is a great way to connect the dots with all those pieces. So we love this aspect of it and only hope to continue to see it grow, because it is only going to continue to boom in ways we don't know, even in this next year.
And even on my end, my marketing manager, Danielle Welch with Bridge, she will take a clip from each podcast and put a graphic together and pop that up. And so it's possible that people may only get 1 minute of Lou Diamond on here, and hopefully,
which is more than enough for the record.
Yeah. No, it's not. Even if you have that face for radio, as you said, and by the way, I do too. I just happen to have a full head of hair, a full head of gray hair, which Francisco Lindor, I know you're a big sports fan, so I'll do this name drop here. And those that can't see right now, Lou is showing off his
my dome.
Your dome, right? It's a dome if you don't have as much hair, I suppose. Francisco Lindor, the star shortstop for the Indians, we were talking about hair color once because he had dyed his hair, and I said, well, I mean, mine's gray. I think he was trying to go for gray. He goes, your hair is not gray. Your hair is white. I said, yeah, you're right. Very, very fair point on that one. But it's possible that people will only see that 1 minute clip on social media, on Instagram, but they are consuming that content. And obviously, just like being the author of a book, as you are, or I now am, you would love it if everybody would read the whole thing. But, people have stuff going on. People have a lot of choices. So you want to at least make them, as you said, aware of what is going on. And I don't know what the next big thing is. I think podcasting is staying the way blogging stayed. But this is the way that we can communicate right now, as you just mentioned. And it's very effective because not everybody does it, even if it feels like everybody does it.
I think the lesson learned out of all this is we want content. If you want to talk about something that we appreciate a lot of while we were stuck at home, I mean, how many shows did you watch streaming this year? How many, whether from series or movies? Just think about what all the movies are doing now, because they can't launch in theaters at the level that they normally do. They're doing this joint thing, whether with HBO or Netflix, and they're pumping out as much content. Why? Because we just keep wanting it. And if we're tired of watching to it, we'll listen to it. If we'll watch these little clips, we love content, and the more of it, the better, because I think it is connecting us, and specifically now where we can't go have a social dinner with 6 or 8 people and spend that time. We want to be able to connect in all these ways. I do feel as we do get back to a little bit more sense of normal, as the vaccine and getting more in person and seeing people come together starts to happen, because I believe we're in a hybrid world, and specifically, in your sports world, for certainly, I have trouble seeing 100,000 people in a stadium just yet. But when we do get to this point where we're bridging it, we're going to figure out which worked best from this environment. What's the stuff that they know they can keep hearing or listening or watching? And what's the stuff that we probably only used in between? That hybrid space is going to be a really interesting place to be, Joel, for leaders, communicators like yourself in the sports world. How we handle that is going to be really interesting from a business point of view too. Costs, savings, other ways of looking at it. I'm already involved in an in-person conference where some people will physically be in a building together, but the majority will be virtual. It's like a first hybrid in-person live event I'm dealing with. And we're going to see more of that stuff too, which is going to be cool for this year.
Yeah, I think it's completely fascinating to see what's going to happen with that, and just to see the evolution and what comes from this crazy year, and how things will be different forever.
Yeah.
Let's get to my baseball themed questions now.
Definitely.
We'll get some sports stuff, because I know you're a big sports fan, but the baseball themed questions are brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. Professionally speaking, your long career here, what is the biggest home run that you have hit?
Marrying my wife. Bar none. Bar none. Greatest partner in life, everything. No questions.
How about from a business standpoint?
Oh, I see you had to go that way. From a business standpoint, making the decision to start Thrive, because I worked on Wall Street, I worked in consulting, but starting Thrive's business without a doubt and helping companies better connect is a knockout of the park for everybody, for me, for them, and for many others as well.
How about a swing and a miss? And what did you learn from it along the way?
Swing and a miss was interesting. We used to run Thrive workshops, and we would invite people in to the workshop to sample it and then see if they would like it to bring it into their companies. And it was a huge, successful workshop, but it did not provide and answer the question of the problem that my clients really had. So we were just so proud of what the workshop that we had, but we realized it wasn't us that was going to give everything that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was working and helping our clients solve their problems. So the swing and the miss was doing this. I spent a full year doing all these workshops and it was a total whiff. And then we realized, let's flip the script and make it specific to those that we help. And that was the lesson learned from that.
Very interesting. And then the small ball question. The book is Small Ball, Big Results, the little things that add up to the big things. What is small ball in your world, Lou?
Small ball in my world is, we'll call it the podcast interview. I will have prospective clients and people in really big companies come on the show, and we'll have this 20 to 30 minute conversation. And I would say that has led to over 7 figures of business over the last 2 to 3 years, just from having that quick little bunt and that first chat that would eventually open up to an ongoing relationship with some really amazing businesses. So that would be my small ball.
Yeah, in baseball terms, you got to get on base. You're getting on base, and sometimes you hit those home runs too, but keep getting on base and good things happen. 4 final questions as we round the bases. Let's begin with a sports question.
Okay.
I know that you are a suffering sports fan.
Big time.
At least it says that in your bio. And if you live in New York, well, I'll start with this. Jets or Giants?
Neither.
Okay. I was going to say, because that would be a lock to be suffering with one or the other.
It's because they were so bad for so long. I'm actually now a Los Angeles Chargers fan. I was a San Diego Chargers fan, which is also very difficult to deal with these days.
You're still suffering some. Yeah. Knicks fan or no?
That would be the biggest suffering.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was going to answer that question.
Yep.
I saw a stat the other day that something like the Philadelphia 76ers, who were my childhood team. I'm so far removed now.
Dr. J. That's why we connected on this. Yeah.
Right. Good old number 6. But so something like that, they've beat the Knicks 17 straight times or something like that. I don't know. But tell me about your love of sports, even if it tortures you.
Well, being a Knicks fan by definition, and a Mets fan, and a Rangers fan, thrown in with the Chargers, I don't have a lot of championships to boast upon. But I think I love following greatness. In every instance, wherever LeBron has gone, I've appreciated it. Whether you like him or not, you cannot deny how great he is on the field. And even I'm a big soccer/football fan as well, and I'll follow those great people as well. I appreciate those that elevate others around them. And I think that is something that you watch and you know who they are. We're not talking about always the greatest individual player. It's the ones that raise the game of the others, the great teammates, the great captains, the great leaders. That is the stuff that I look at. Those are the people. I had Jamal Mashburn on Thrive Loud, and you can go look at his career, specifically when he was in Kentucky. He was an unbelievably talented guy, didn't have the NBA career that he wanted, but his real story is how successful in business he's been in life and how he surrounds himself by people much smarter than him and how he uses that to his advantage. We're just great lessons in taking the lessons of sports and bringing them into your business and knowing how to manage great teams and great leaders and delegate. That stuff, to me, is what makes the game so great and so much fun.
Well, let's make that the second question then. What is it about sports that translates so beautifully to business?
Wins and losses. I mean, let's make it clear that every day if you have an overall winning record, which is a successful business, you find formulas and things that you keep doing consistently, and you will see that of great winning teams. I don't know how Belichick has done it for all these years, but look, first losing season in 20 plus years. This is a guy that has figured out certain formulaic things that have worked. And when they don't work, he adapts and you change. So when you're losing, looking at yourself in the mirror and trying to figure out how to make the changes. I think that your record is up there is something that's really important as a salesperson, a sales leader, to help people do this. Yeah, it's not the most important thing to sell. You want to help your customers, but at the end of the day, the results are up there every day. And I think that's very valuable to know where you're standing, because that will always help you grow and improve.
Well said. Third question on the lighthearted note. How often do people mention some version of Lou Diamond Phillips or La Bamba or whatever? It's got to happen on a regular basis.
It has happened so much so, Joel, that I would let you know that in my life, people will say my name and then they'll Joe, like Lou Diamond Phillips. I'm like, yes, and I've had mistaken reservations made under Phillips from restaurants, hotels, rental cars, and most specifically, one time, an airline person, an airline shall not be named, heard the Lou Diamond Phillips and then mistakenly booked my name under Phillips. This is post 9/11, 2001. And I could not get on the flight I had because my ID did not match it. There's a really good story for another podcast that I got to meet Lou Diamond Phillips, and I got him to buy me drinks for many of the reasons why. But yes, it has constantly happened in my life.
When does he become a guest on Thrive Lounge?
So true story. 2 years ago, right around this time, it was around November. Lou Diamond Phillips was supposed to come on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, and then he got arrested in a DWI, and it was literally, I got a phone call from his agent saying he's not allowed to speak to any media because of it. We have not rescheduled since. Lou Diamond Phillips, when you're listening, we can reenact this anytime you want, so we can make it happen.
He's a huge listener of On the Bases. I was just hoping to get Goldberg the wrestler.
That would be spectacular.
Or somebody from the Goldberg sitcom. I don't know.
I bet you I can make that happen for you. I'm going to make that a goal of mine to get this year. We're going to get either someone from the TV show or the wrestler. I bet I can make that happen for you. I'll put that out there.
That would be fantastic. I don't really know what my preference would be. The Goldberg family came to that show later, and it's not like we were unaware of it. It's like, well, what do we need to watch a show about the Goldbergs from? And that was my childhood, by the way, growing up outside of Philadelphia and Flyers fan and all this. And so when I watched that show now, and we watch it as a family, we binged it during the pandemic. I was like, that's my childhood. So, but at the same time, perhaps my favorite television interview of all time was the late Roddy Piper, who wanted to be tag team partners with me, is what he said at Wrigley Field. And when I informed him that being a Goldberg, I always wanted the Goldberg partnership, he, on the fly live television, said that he was going to convert to being Jewish and that he would be my tag partner. Anyway, any Goldberg would be great for me. We get you, Lou Diamond Phillips, in the world.
But which Goldberg on the TV show would you want to get, though? Like, would you want the mom? Because I think that would probably be the most entertaining.
I mean, she is as nerve-wracking as she could be on that show, Nails on the Chalkboard. She's the best thing on that show, right?
Yeah. It's unreal. And for anyone around our age who had a mom growing up in the 80s, it's incredible how they just nail certain things that she does on that television show. It's really good. But I think that would be I think we're going to make that happen, Joel. Stay tuned. I am the master connector. I can make these things happen. So
then again, Jeff Carlin is so damn funny and so brilliant. And I could just unfortunately picture him doing the interview in his underwear, just as Barry Goldberg would do on the show.
At least that's why they show most of the stuff from the waist up. At least that's what we have right here.
Where in the world has this podcast gone? Okay, the big finish, the walk-off question. It's a two-parter. One, who's the biggest guest that you have had to this point? You've had so many. And can you share any possible future guests coming, or however you want to say that?
Okay. Biggest, I'm going to give two guys. Biggest guest from a business point of view, I had John C. Maxwell, who is the guru in leadership. And it's still one of my favorite episodes. I probably learned 100 things in this 25-minute conversation with him. But there have been other ones. If we go, Lisa Lampanelli, the comedian, still stands out because we recorded that show live on the stage at Caroline's where she got her start. So I would have to put that as probably the big one. That passes Jackie the Joke Man Martling and Mary Carrillo and a lot of other people. Adrian Bankert from Good Morning America this past year was just amazing. Okay, for what's coming up, there's some really good ones. I can't mention the one that I know we mentioned before we went on the air with you because it hasn't been approved yet, but there's a major media person. She is going to be a really excellent guest. And we also have got the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the world coming on. That'll be very cool. So you'll enjoy those. I can't say their names just yet because that's like letting the cat out of the bag, but really good.
That's okay. And notice that I didn't give it away because I know the way this type of stuff works, but I'm excited for you and for your listeners, and people can find out more about Lou in a couple of spots, thriveloud.com, the podcast and his business, or you can go to loudiamond.net and you could book Lou to speak, or you can learn more about all of his endeavors. And so I encourage everybody to do that. I wish you, my friend, a happy new year. One of the bright spots, the many bright spots of the down year, was getting a chance to meet you and really understanding that we can make these connections across the country virtually. I feel like I know you very well, and that happened over the course of this year. So I'm really grateful for that and glad you spent some time today on the podcast.
You're my new brother from another mother from the Midwest, and it's my good friend, man. Thank you for having me on. This has been great.
All right, Lou, thank you very much, and a happy new year again to you. And thanks to all of you for spending so much time on Rounding the Bases. Or if this is your first time, hope you'll come back. A shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kitsett Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. Happy New Year, everyone. Looking forward to many, many more podcasts this year. You could reach me on social media or the website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. The book is Small Ball, Big Results. A lot of stories about baseball, sports, business, and life in there. You can find that on Amazon or again on the website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. That is going to do it for this episode of Rounding the Bases. Hope to catch you next time. Thanks, everyone.